Hello there, this is Greg Johnson making, and I'm using old toys and household junk to make a Martian tripod from The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. Herbert George Wells is very much the architect of modern science fiction. In 1895 he wrote The Time Machine, in 1896 he wrote The Island of Dr. Moreau, in 1897 he wrote The Invisible Man, and in 1898 he wrote The War of the Worlds. I mean, I don't know what you've achieved in the past 4 years, but I haven't done that. So yeah, it's kind of a big deal. Everyone's heard of War of the Worlds. There have been, not countless, but certainly a very, very large number that I haven't counted, of adaptations of this. Lots of interpretations of what the tripod could look like. Whether any of them are accurate to the book is not really for me to say. How they move, how many limbs it's got, whether it's got legs. These things have all varied over the years, depending I suspect on budget or what the director thought looked silly. I mean, it's meant to roll along on its side like a three-legged milking stool bowled violently along the ground. No one's ever done that, and I don't blame them. Hard to pull that off. It'd be quite scary if you could do it well. So it's a Martian walking machine, or a monstrous tripod higher than many houses. It's a walking engine of glittering metal, it's referred to as glittering a few times, with articulate ropes of steel dangling from it. It's a great body of machinery on a tripod stand. I fancied having a go at it because I had some interesting ideas for parts to use, as you'll see, and I like the idea of making things from literature, because I get to design them rather than copying something, and this isn't really a replica channel. I want to design more. What else is there to say? Nothing. Do I use this bit once again? Some disposable knives I got from our local out-of-date surplus food store. I just like the texture on the handle. Lots of different pound shop toothbrushes. A model of a scorpion my mum bought me from a charity shop. An Orangina bottle, a couple of toy helicopter rotor blades, a massive Hulkbuster. Some plant feeding spikes, an old internet booster plug thing, the body of a landline phone, some old bits of Batmobile and Transformers, Spider-Man's iconic motorbike. Couple of plugs, the hood off a Batmobile, the windscreen, bit of pipe, the connector off a Vileader Super Mop, some metal pen nibs, a cat toy, a couple of wire egg cups, couldn't remember the word egg cups, a spray bottle head, obviously they're compulsory, lots and lots of air freshener parts, a broken old umbrella I found on the ground, some toilet cleaner lids, some hairpins, a bit of plastic, the top of a soap bottle, and various greeblies I've already chosen, and a cricket box. A cricket box. Apologies to my dad. My brothers and I never got into cricket, as I think he would have liked us to. But I know what a cricket box is. I know what it's for. I know that they're necessary. Why do I have one? I occasionally pretend to be a quasi-Belgian action star called Lunge Dolphin. I once made a book about the making of lots of his movies, and I had to make a, in my opinion, amusing spacesuit. And I thought it should have a cricket box, so I've got two. And I was thinking about the hood of this tripod. And I thought what I want is like a sort of cowl that's narrower at one end and slightly flatter and splayed out at the back, and I thought that's the shape of a cricket box. And also, don't they have cool triangular holes in them? And don't I have one somewhere? So I went through my many chests of garbage and found one. So I'm just unpicking the necessary for comfort padded rim. Keeping that. Lovely bit of K-pop. If you don't know what that was, ask your parent or guardian. This massive Hulkbuster I found on eBay is the most difficult to dismantle toy I have ever confronted in my entire career. Normally you just stick a big screwdriver in somewhere, give it a twist, and the toy just falls apart like an Easter egg. This was about an hour of effort, as you can see. He's okay folks. That's not pain, that's relief. This is the connector from, I think, Vileader Super Mop. It's not the shaft and it's not the fronds, it's the connector. Thank you to Vileader for giving me £1 million for this video, well, just under. Again, I've had this for years because I knew this was a good shape, but wow, it was hard to dismantle. These things are well made. Pausing briefly to admire some spray bottle parts, which I end up not using. This spray bottle head is, I guess, the pelvis, because it's the bit that the legs come out of, and the purple bit is, let's say, the neck. Let's soda glue! Crafting stickers available on my Etsy shop. So what we're doing is we're tacking this in place with soda glue and, oh, bless Bill making stuff for the tip of putting your baking soda in a salt shaker. For extra tidiness. Very good, you've changed my life. And then hot glue, it'll do. Crafting stickers available on my Etsy shop. Then hot glue on the inside. This is the edge of the top of some facial moisturiser, or you can use it on any body part, moisturiser that my wife gave me. And then around the outside I've detailed it with a strip of, I think they're microchips that I got from scrap. Then the iris is the hair catching thing out of the bath plug hole. which I've cleaned. Again, tacking that on the inside with dots of super glue. Another toy part that took many hours of tussling and wrestling to get out, but this is the turbine from the back of a toy Batmobile, which I really like, covering it with this metal mesh that I think was a phone case that I found on the ground. There's going to be lights inside this thing, so I want to fill the holes, but fill them with something you can see light through. This is a cake icing or fancy cookie making big syringe, which has nice lines like hurricane glass, sort of Fresnel lens, lighthouse looking type glass up and down it. So I'm going to cut out a collar of that and then cover the eye with
a Ferrero Rocher display orb.
Then I don't want that to fog up with super glue, so I'm putting on some dots of UV resin, attaching that to the icing syringe collar and curing it via the gift of intense sunshine. There's some intense sunshine out there today, I tell you. Whee! So attaching the neck and pelvis to the underside of the body, chin, I've cut a little slot out of the Hulkbuster chest so that this just fits in there. And then because this is going to be quite heavy and have metal legs eventually, stay tuned, I'm filling it with wood because I trust wood screws. So this is an old bottle stopper with a wooden cork bit in the top, pushing that in, hot glue to hold, and then a screw all the way down into that. I just want a wooden core. And because what's inside doesn't matter, just holding that in place with goth glue, the inside can be a mess, which I find very liberating. Then here, a round wooden bead, a piece of wood I cut to just fit inside that spray bottle head and just get as much wood in there as you can. Then attaching the eye, but only attaching it to the bottom half of the body. The top needs to stay off because I want to attach lights and do all that in a bit. So this is a slightly tricky order to do things in. This is the block to which I will be adding the tentacle unit, but this is going to be removed to attach arms, and you're always doing things in the wrong order, but you know, if you've glued something on once, you can glue it on again. The fact that that fits over there, that's the trigger off an air freshener. Yeah, big fan of that. Oh, you need a new nozzle on there, boy. And those are cog parts from the inside of a transformer. Of course, I don't need to explain what this is. It's Spider-Man's famous motorbike with all the spider-themed details on there that he's always riding around. Cut this in half. It seemed to fit nicely in the underjowls. Maybe these are the sideburns. There was a screw hole in it already, so I thought let's use that. And I love a split pin, so split pins into the body, fold them out, and goth glue to hold the split pins and keep them split. These little maroon parts are from a Gashapon tiny Gundam model kit, so I'm just using them, trying to spread them out all over to get a sense of scale, fitting more wood inside that spray bottle. How much wood would a wood thing hold if a wood thing could hold wood? Lots. One thing I love about scratch bashing is you don't need to be tidy. If there's a screw head or a gap, or you just stick a greebly on to tidy up with greeblies rather than with being neat. Legs, legs, legs. These are hairpins. I don't think I disguised that they're hairpins in the final thing, but scale does a lot for you, you know. If they're sort of 20 feet tall, they can't be hairpins, they must be something more Martian. And this is a technique I've come up with that I'm very proud of, inordinately proud of. If you cut the bristles off a toothbrush, they go everywhere, unless you melt them into one big blob first. That's pretty good. So the next time you need to do that in life, use that technique. These plant feeding spikes, I'm just cutting away a bit of them to put in some more wood to attach things to. A welcome reappearance of the square dowel. Square dowel. Once that's on, sanding the kneecap flat so that the toothbrush sits against that piece of dowel and putting a drill hole through the hairpin. Again, I will just cover up that screw with something greebly-ish later. I'll just scratch bash it into submission. And then super gluing these onto the front of the shin. They came off a couple of times, but once something's been glued, it can be glued again. Monochrome, woe is me, black and white means failure. As long-term viewers will know, I often fail. It was going very nicely, and they would be good legs, but let's go live to the studio. Greg? Monday. It's Monday, and I've made some Monday decisions. Yesterday, I spent all day making some lovely legs. Spent the whole of Sunday sticking you together. What Britpop anthem is that from? And I was reasonably happy with them. They need encrusting with greeblies and painting to hide their toothbrushicity, but that's fine, that's for later. So I walked into my workroom this morning and just happened to casually glance at this jar of just old painting and sculpting tools I already had, didn't need to buy from the pound shop. These toothbrushes. These toothbrushes are, I have decided, superior aesthetically to these toothbrushes that I was using. This, the hard angle there, So, it's dismantling time. So having fastened them all together with 2-part resin and let that cure overnight to make a nice strong bond, it's now time to break that bond and start again. So there's our first bit of toothbrush changing. Will it be our last? No spoilers, but no. Filling in some gaps around the calf with Freya and Daryl's wonderful knockoff cheapo Lego, or as someone called it in the comments, boot Lego. Boot Lego, isn't that good? So this is just cheap boot Lego, and then I'm using my wax-tipped pen to stick some little bead details onto the sides of the shin. More black and white already? Yes, already. Bent these baby toothbrushes into a nice angle, put a thin bolt all the way through, tightened that bolt with 2 pairs of pliers, then cut the bolt off reasonably flush, used my rotary tool to sand down that sharp bit of bolt, but as our reporter on the scene will now tell you, good news and bad news. I've got the new toothbrushes in place now, screwed through there, stuck on, covered up those sides, whittled these down to make the hair braid tube fit on, put a bolt through there to attach this to here. The bad news is that they're rubbish. Yeah, they're rubbish. I can't trust them. They're just quite obviously going to be too bendy. Here's what I said in my last video. Use metal for structural stuff, if you can. So rather than ditch this and start a whole other project, which I didn't seriously consider, but it crossed my mind, I've just spent a fair while, getting dark out there, cutting out some metal with my gloves on and my rotary tool, and I've bent it into a rough sort of templated shape. These metal legs are going to go down into this knee, be attached to the leg somehow, maybe even just with cable ties, and then I can cover the heads of the cable ties on this side. Then this bit goes up into the body, so it's not metal all the way to the ground, but it's metal into what I'm calling the kneecap. I thought about scrapping these legs entirely and just having like 3 long wires as legs, and then I'd be much closer to being done, but I'm not gonna. Now it's just a question of cladding these and making them look less bad. After the big bot bash I had a choice to make. Do I make a slightly lighter one, or do I keep on trying to impress people with an equally big, if not larger and more challenging project? And I'm hoping you can tell which one I chose. Big metal legs, covered the longest part with soap bottle tubes, always a good tube to use in a pinch. Then hair braid tubes, love those things. Thin springs, when you dismantle a lot of toys you find a lot of springs. The trickiest bit is the bit between the 2 angles because you can't slide anything onto it. So here I've just stuck on the end of a very long bit of florist's wire and I'm wrapping it round and round and round to give a slightly organic spring style technological look. It's been nice doing an extraterrestrial thing rather than like earthbound industrial red dwarf aliens, that kind of techno thing I normally do. This is more curves and swoops and sharp bits and bits that look weird and slightly organic and slightly less logical, so it's a whole different aesthetic that I really liked doing. Disposable picnic knives. Love this texture. I'm thinking of the coral in Christopher Eccleston's TARDIS. I'm thinking of that guy with a cape and a light on the front out of Babylon 5. If you incorporate organic stuff into technology, it tends to look alien to us, like it's been slightly grown and slightly manufactured at the same time. So drilling through the electric toothbrush head, put again a thin bolt through, bolt it on the other side, cut that off, and then just a bit of super glue on the inside to hold it to the lower mid leg joint, as it's called by us in the biz. Thankfully I got these miniature steering wheels really cheaply because they were mislabelled. They're invisible snap fasteners, apparently. They're not invisible, they're there. I mean, what do they take us for? I wasn't born yesterday. So detailing the backs of what I'm going to call the knees with a drawing pin head and a little miniature snap fastener that looks like a steering wheel. My beloved perm clips. It's a long spiky clip with lots of holes in. Stick that down the leg. And finally using the crusted and busted up old umbrella that I found on the ground, because it's got some nice fine joins to it. And because I want this design to be recognisably technological as well as slightly organic looking, I want it to have recognisably articulated joints, hinged bits of umbrella, stuck some boot Lego sockets on the end, and just some fake bead pearls on the bottom end because a sphere is a very good universal joint. If you don't quite know how to connect 2 things together, stick a ball in it. Arms and tentacles? Arms and tentacles. Now, more black and white. These are massive. If these were dangling from a 100-foot thing, they'd be like telegraph poles, and these are meant to be glittering thin ropes of metal. So I used much, much finer glass beads threaded onto wire and then bent into shape very carefully, because they crack, they break, and you get little bits of glass in your fingers, for example. You don't want shards in you. And detailing the ends with the little springs off a miniature clothes peg. This is a pipe cleaner. I just liked the texture of that wire, and then I thought if I cut that loop into 2 little prongs, they look a bit like hands. So need something for those tentacles to come out of. This is the face of the Gashapon miniature Gundam, just sanding the back flat. Attaching all the tentacles to this, put them through the eyes and mouth holes, super glue on the back, then snip off the excess bit of wire. But I don't want to paint these, so I'm going to attach these right at the very, very end. This is the gun from Novelty Robot Pen. The tripod has 2 weapons. There's the heat ray. H.G. Wells was writing 59 years before the invention of the word laser, which looks like a camera with a funnel on the front, and then the other thing fires capsules that give off this deadly black fog. But I thought I would just cut this gun in half to make the 2 weapons, because then they're equally detailed. This is the heat ray. It's described as a complicated box with a funnel on the front that looks a bit like a camera. Very few designers who've realised the tripods for film and TV have made it look like it's holding a large box that looks like a camera. But I at least put a funnel on the front of mine. As I said before, this unit went on prematurely because I want to put the arms through it, so I just prised the air freshener trigger back off. This is plastic covered coat hanger, and then I'm making some shoulder pads, shoulder sockets out of, again, I bought a necklace that was all loads of different beads, so I've got discs and cups and balls and yeah, a good mixture of beads for a low, low price. I did use the plastic bead over wire technique for the arms rather than the tentacles, so it wasn't all wasted. And then I just wrapped a bit of cloth tape around the wrist so it would fit exactly into the back of the 2 weapons. And just in case you can see this big gob of soda glue, I'm covering it with a little wire connector socket thing. And for extra strength, mix up some 2-part epoxy, put that on the back, and reattached it with a wood screw all the way through the unit, which I again will cover later with a greebly or something. Let's have an intermission. Today's video is sponsored by you, or it could be. If you're in a position to help the channel, I hate myself. If you're in a position to help the channel grow, then why not sign up to my Patreon? Or I also have a Ko-Fi. Haven't had any action from that in a long while, because I never mention it, but I have a Ko-Fi. If you want, you could buy me a cup of Ko-Fi. We could drink it together on Zoom. I'll have a coffee with you. I don't mind, I'm not proud. Or you could buy something from my Etsy shop. That's the advert. I saw someone somewhere suggest try asking halfway through the video rather than at the end. So I did. But now that we're all fully rested after that lovely intermission, let's make the hood, or the top half of the head. So this is the cricket box. I cut this down to shape off camera. You can always, well, you can't tell unless I tell you, but you can always tell I'm nervous when I do something and don't film it. Basically, it was just cutting away with my rotary tool and then using a sanding drum to try and get this curve so it just fitted over the shoulders and then a curve in the middle over the eye. And I'm as happy as I'm going to be with what shape it is. No, I'm very happy. I have to project positivity. Like a heat ray. I bought a bag of interestingly shaped bits of wood, wooden like play blocks. So this curvy piece is going to be the thing I attach the hood to, and I'm going to use magnets so I can hide the light switches under the hood. The hood comes off and goes back on again, but without falling off once it's on. Thank you, magnets. Then filling out the back of the head, this is the windscreen of a Batmobile, again screwed onto a piece of wood covered in hot glue. Self-tapping screws, they're like screw pegs. So I've put these 2 pegs into this wooden mohawk. Then I put 2 corresponding holes into the hood so that it slots over those 2 pegs. You need 2 to keep it in a straight line. And the final step will be to add a couple of magnets so it's held on there. Time to add the lights. These again, very cheapo, small battery pack lights. Bit scared for the flimsiness of this wire. It's more like hair, electric hair. So I'm covering it where I'm going to glue it onto the body of the thing with some heat shrink, which I then shrink using heat. Pull out the little battery tab and obsessively make sure they work. Flash, slow flash, and constant. And that battery pack gets glued onto the side of the wood. See, I'm not one of these YouTubers who just sticks the lights in place for long enough that you can get a video, but you can't change the batteries. You know, you can change the batteries on my stuff. You know, I pride myself on it. I'm pushing my glasses up a lot today because I'm quite sweaty. LED whimpers. LED whimpers. They are LED eyelash makeup. You stick them to your eyelids so that your eyes flash. Isn't that cool? They've got lots of different functions. Apparently the battery lasts 8 hours. So then that battery pack and button gets stuck on the other side of the wooden block. Magnet time. So we need some things for the magnets to stick to. So I'm going to put screws in front of and behind these two pegs. Then I'm putting on a neodymium magnet to make sure it's the right way around, and colouring one side with a Sharpie so I know that that's the side that gets stuck outwards onto the underside of the hood. Just getting my polarities right. I've probably overly worried about how hard to embed these things, so soda glue, goth glue, and then I've also covered them over with heavy duty gaffer tape. But that's satisfying, because this thing's been so wobbly that once you get it set so it goes on easily and comes off easily but doesn't fall off, that's a pride moment. I speak only for myself. I don't know how you would attach the back end of Spider-Man's motorbike to your mum's old landline phone, but for me it's put a wood screw up through the bottom so it's into the bit of motorbike, and then fill around that screw in the cavity with some goth glue and cover that goth glue with the nozzle of a soap bottle. Here I wanted a lot of fins and pointy alien looking action coming out of the back of the hood. These are toy helicopter rotor blades. Because the front half of this thing will be underneath the back of the hood, it can be quite messy, so it's sort of goth glue at the front, super glue at the back. This beige thing is part of a toaster. I was going to do a toaster dismantling video as an exciting Patreon bonus vid, but it took like 3 hours. So I think dismantling things, greebly harvesting, I think could be a live stream. Let me know if that would be fun. Maybe on Friday nights I dismantle toasters online and we all hang out and see what's in there. Is that parasocial? It's toaster social. I've actually put an on-screen note for myself that says mention toaster dismantling vid. Just to drum up some excitement. This, I'm laughing. You've got the giggles when you're just standing on your own. That's strange, isn't it? I'm not on my own, I'm with you. So this spiky silver thing is a Batman shield, or it's part of a Batmobile. I'm getting to use all the spiky alien looking bits I never normally get to use. Speaking of spiky things, this is a little toy stealth bomber, and I think if you stick enough of them together, you can't see that they're little halves of planes. Or maybe you can. I just wanted a mass of fins, a kind of porcupine, pangolin, plates and spiky bits coming out of the back. Speaking of plates, I'm an old hand at this now. I'm dismantling lots and lots of air freshener cans because they have a nice oval disc. Can you have an oval disc? I guess a disc has to be circular. Anyway, these are Orangina bottles, which I thought, shake the bottle, wake the drink. Get some organic textures in there to increase the alienicity, extraterrestriality of things. Just lightly sanding it on some Scotch-Brite scuffy wool, because this is all very shiny, very smooth plastic. So again, scratch up the top of these panels, plenty super glue, and stick the Orangina oval onto the top of the air freshener cap. Obviously. Cutting a big hole with my step bit. These are little flying toys or spinning discs or something, again from a charity shop, and I've stuck them through their sort of ears or something. Getting to use some of the abandoned toothbrushes, which is nice, and again, because the front edge of them is going to be under the hood, they can be a right old mess of cable ties and goth glue. And nobody knows. Except you and me. And detailing the other side, we can now do a sort of speed run. So this is a bit of goth glue and some super glue to stick on these plastic pot lids I've got that I like and that are also the right size to fill that hole. Which tends to really guide your decision making with scratch bashing, is what fits. That does. Or in the case of this, what have I got 2 of? I had one disc I really wanted to use as a kind of ear dome, but I did not have 2 of them. So I had to use a slightly flatter disc. It's all compromised. Don't want to do it anymore. And just building up these plates, trying to get them angled so both sides of the head are symmetrical was a little bit fiddly. Obviously putting them on in the right order is a bit fiddly. Which one do you want to go under which? Just to give it a sort of encased shell that fits under the hood. But satisfying because I like how it looks. Wood screw through the flying disc to hold it onto the ear plate, and then cover that with half a brass press fastener or popper button. Once again, in praise of scratch bashing, if there's a messy join or a crack or something that doesn't look good, cover it with a greebly. For example, where the shoulder is cracked because it's where I put my screwdriver in, you can just cover it with the ring pull thing from round a milk bottle. Just a random example. These are battleship guns off the deck of a little toy battleship about this big, which I'm putting into the shoulders or temples. I guess if that's the eye, then they're eyebrows. I didn't want them pointing forward because they look too much like, oh, it's got lots of guns, big deal. So I put them that way, so maybe they're aerials or sensors, trying to confuse their purpose so they don't just look like a bunch of guns. The baskets for holding people in, spoilers. I'm glad I bought 2 of these because I already had one, but I thought, I bet if I buy another one it won't quite match. And that's not tolerable. So I bought 2 and these do match. Take out the brass shaft thing from the inside. There's a spring in there. Careful, that was quite fun. Another spring for the spring bag. And these brass parts, which I will use again in something. But not this. Not this. These need cutting down, just use my rotary tool. Lined them with a strip of fine mesh that I bought when I was making a Borg cube. But I'm not going to stick these on yet because I want to paint them separately. I want to keep that texture and silver. And as if you didn't already know, one of these kitchen plug things fits exactly inside a camera film pot lid if you cut out the little holding ring from the inside. This is the underside of an air freshener trigger. Just looking for gaps and filling them with greeblies. Another bit of old landline phone cradle. Looks like the back of a ship. It's nicely finely detailed and is asymmetrical. Big fan of that. Thought I bet that'll fill the back of my Martian tripod in well, and it did. Size 38 sizing cubes like you get on a coat hanger. I got a bag of these from scrap. So just put one on the back, wood screw through, cover it in hot glue, and then onto that peg we fit a knockoff transformer head. Fins and pointy bits is the order of the day. This hood needs some kind of fine detail to make it look big. Some of these miniature steering wheels, a couple of little miniature Gundam parts, and another metal hair clip held on down the back like a spine with a couple of tiny split pins. More fine detail, these tiny little cogs just to add some scale, and cover that wood screw with a spiky greebly that I don't know what it is. Plant holding clips, they're designed for holding plants onto garden canes, I think. Anyway, you don't like a join or it's a bit messy, just stick around some lightly sanded wire to tidy up that join, and then rivets! Finally, time to stick on the eye lights, so I'm just tacking those to the outside. I was going to put clear bits of plastic over them, and I kept trying various things. In the end, I just like the detail of the lights themselves, so I left them, tucking all the wire back in, and the central eye wires, just wrapping them in cling film and masking tape and tucking them in for painting. 463 grams. And I thought that could stand on legs made from babies' toothbrushes. What was I thinking? Time to attach the legs. Let's drill 3 leg holes into all that wood. Quick tribute to Edvard Munch. Thank you. And then it's metal cutting time. I don't like metal cutting time. I think I probably used the wrong blade and it's very noisy and hot, but the sparks look cool. So I'm going to stick the back leg in first and let that set and be well stuck in before I attach and angle the other 2. 2-part epoxy and also some thickening masking tape around the stump of the top of the leg, and then that goes up into the back leg hole, and we have a monopod which can hop. Let's stick the other legs on now as well. More 2-part epoxy. Then I'm going to stick the legs, the other 2 legs, up into the leg holes and sit it in 3 big chunks of blue tack to hold the angle of those legs overnight. I think ideally you'd attach it with a bit of square dowel into a square hole. But, fingers crossed. Good boy. The next day. Hey, it worked fine. I could have woken up to all sorts of, you know, wobbly problems, but it turned out fine. However, I am going to put it on a base, because if you were to grab the front 2 mistakenly thinking it was posable or something, you could do it some damage, do it a mischief. More greebling. Thank you to Jack Edwards Fox for giving me not only some lovely texture paint that you weren't using, but including some Warhammer parts. Fine bits of gun, just to put some fine detail on the front of the pelvis. And more thanks to my brother-in-law for giving me this wooden clock frame, which is the perfect thing to drill footholes into And then I'm putting a pilot hole in the very tippy tip of the spiky foot, very gingerly and carefully drilling a hole, and I've got some leftover umbrella wire to go through the foot on the underside of the frame. So unless you snap the tips of the feet off, it cannot be removed from its base. Just encrusting those bits of wire with soda glue and then covering them with hot glue as well. Using the paper face of the clock as a template to make a thin cardboard, should have used MDF but we'll find that out later, thin cardboard disc to cover the hole in the middle. Because clocks have a hole in the middle. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to... Wait a minute. Computer. Just rewind a couple of minutes please. Pause there. Invert. Analyze. Sectors B5 and 6, zoom and enhance. I knew it. It's prime time!
Prime time! I got too excited and forgot to film the shots where it's just black. Blue from below and chrome from above now, and baby I can't take it back.
Painting. Is it painting if you're using... It's painting! Going over with my liquid chrome pen and just picking bits out in silver. I didn't want this to be brass or copper because I'm not going for a steampunk look. But several times the hood of the tripod is referred to as brazen. So the hood of this machine either acts in a wantonly shameless and unself-conscious sort of a way, or more probably is made of brass. So I've just done a dry brush of antique gold, which I like. So thank you H.G. Wells for making me confront my fear of warm coloured metals. The people carrying basket is also described as white metal several times, so dry brushing white over the scuffed silver. White silver with a bit of silver chipping. Then for a wash, just to pick out some shadows and details, I'm using Nuln oil on the silver blue body, which is a black wash. And then here there was a messy join on the back, I think again where I'd put in a screwdriver, thinking I was going to cover it with something, so I thought, yeah, cover it with something. Turbo Dork. This is not a sponsored thing, but this is some holographic effect paint I bought at Chilcon in Sheffield. I went to their stall and the guy was very helpful. Colour shifting paint, which is green up into pinky purple. So as you tilt it, or depending what angle the light hits it, it has a duochromatic effect. So I'm using that as a glaze over the silver and over the gold. Also I noticed later when I gloss lacquer it, because I wanted this to be really shiny, this hood when it's finally finished really goes from pink to green and has this double holographic colour to it that just looks alien. And yeah, still going. Fine liner pen down some of the sharp angles, and in the way that I used black wash on the silver body, I'm using a brown wash, Agrax Earthshade, on the warm coloured hood, just so the shadows are a warmer, browner colour. Nearly there. I'm very warm. The Mumford & Sons cosplay was a mistake. The base, back to base. This is some floor mat. If you're not a cheapskate, put in a fresh blade and it's very satisfying to shave. Or if you are a cheapskate, just hack away and saw at the edge. Stuck all that down with hot glue and tape. Then we've got some polyfiller, some brown paint and some out-of-date coriander. And that's your earth goop. I'm just smoothing it out a bit with some water, probably unnecessarily. Mod Podge and water mixed together, nice and runny. Yes, I did think that sieve would be bigger when I bought it online, but it's actually fine. It's cute. This is 2mm grass flocking, and then this is dried up used coffee grounds, which I just dried out in the oven, and a bit of sand, because this is the scorched earth part of the base. You'll see in a minute. Sprayed that with isopropyl alcohol to help the watery glue spread out, and then put on another layer of watery glue. Then once that's dry, a skin of watery glue and black paint. Thanks to Sleeping Dragon Hobby Shop for the nice rocks that I got at Chilcon. Then adding some pebbles and bits of sand, just some bits of ground. Overdoing those scorch lines a bit, but I'll paint over those in a minute with some dry brushing. Speaking of dry brushing, the most fun part always for me. So I said earlier, don't use cardboard for your basing. That's because it warps. The foam bit has warped away from the cardboard. If there is a gap, fill it with Hoth glue, glue from the planet Hoth. Then mix up some, I'm not changing that, it is glue from the planet Hoth. Then mix up some used coffee grounds and watery glue and black paint. These people, I wanted to put people running away from danger on the grassy bit, but they're train set people, so they're just waiting for a train. They're not action poses. I tried a guy just standing with his hands in his pockets, looking at the tripod. Yeah. Sorry, This wasn't the plan. Really, there were going to be people facing away and running away on the sunny, kind of grassy side of the base. But I couldn't just have a guy standing there with his hands in his pockets or like reading a newspaper. So these two figures, I'm afraid, they didn't make it. But everyone else did. Everyone else is fine. Just cover them in glue and sand. So bad news, nothing some tufts won't fix. These useful foliage terrain segments. Lovely flowers and bits of grass. Flowers probably slightly out of scale with the people, but maybe they're rhododendron bushes or it's fine. Bit of grey chalk to really bring out the little details on the ashy ground, which I really like. Right, so we're into finishing final details. I'm in too much of a hurry to give it its own title. Bits I didn't want to paint. That knob on top is a metal fancy cocktail stick. These are the ends of the spokes from the umbrella that I just thought had a nice, slightly inexplicable detail to them. Put a bit of guitar string up there as well. And now it's time to finally finish the eye. So I pulled out the eye lights, unwrapped the cling film and masking tape, held them all together in a ball just using super glue and put a sort of neck of sellotape around it. Into that fits a soap bottle tube. Then I'm sticking that bundle of lights into the centre of the iris, which is just the top of the water bottle cap, holding that in place via the gift of intense purpleness, sticking the iris onto the front of the eye, holding it in place, intense purpleness, yada yada, and again more UV resin over which I stuck
A Ferrero Rocher display orb.
Then penultimately I attached the tentacle face with a wood screw, covered that wood screw with the head of a tiny split pin, then got out my Musu black, a lovely birthday present from my other brother-in-law, painted the edge a nice solid black, and I called it good. So now after 6 weeks, that's just filming this voiceover, let's take a look at the finished thing.
Seen nearer, the thing was incredibly strange, for it was no mere insensate machine driving on its way. Machine it was, with a ringing metallic pace and long, flexible, glittering tentacles swinging and rattling about its strange body. It picked its road as it went striding along, and the brazen hood that surmounted it moved to and fro with the inevitable suggestion of a head looking about. Behind the main body was a huge mass of white metal, like a gigantic fisherman's basket, and puffs of green smoke squirted out from the joints of the limbs as the monster swept by me. As it passed, it set up an exultant, deafening howl that drowned the thunder. Then the monster had risen to its feet and had begun to walk leisurely across the common among the few fugitives, with its head-like hood turning about exactly like the head of a cowled human being. A kind of arm carried a complicated metallic case about which green flashes scintillated, and out of the funnel of this there smote the heat ray. In a few minutes there was, so far as the soldier could see, not a living thing left upon the common, and every bush and tree upon it that was not already a blackened skeleton was burning. 4 or 5 little black figures hurried before it across the grey-green of the field, and in a moment it was evident this Martian pursued them. In 3 strides he was among them, and they ran radiating from his feet in all directions. He used no heat ray to destroy them, but picked them up, one by one. Apparently he tossed them into the great metallic carrier which projected behind him. Suddenly I heard a yell, and saw a long tentacle reaching over the shoulder of the machine to the little cage that hunched upon its back. Then something struggling violently, was lifted high against the sky, a black, vague enigma against the starlight, and as this black object came down, I saw by the green brightness that it was a man. He vanished behind the mound, and for a moment there was silence, and then began a shrieking and a sustained and cheerful hooting from the Martians.
He's a big old boy. The best thing I've made? That's not for me to, that's for you to agree with. Very happy with all 18 inches of him. Big challenge, but big challenges lead to big achievements. Apologies that I've been away since the Big Bot Bash longer than I wanted to be. Someone very kindly commissioned me to make another Borg Cube lamp, so I had to do that for a couple of weeks, and then I had to take on this bad boy. As I said earlier, I had a choice. I could follow up Big Bot Bash with something simple, or I could keep on really trying to impress. And I hope I have. Thank you so much for watching this far in what I know will be a long video. So if you have, let me know that by using the random secret code word indistinctness. Indistinctness. Post that below. I've already subtly suggested that you might like to sign up to my Patreon, so all that remains for me to do is to welcome aboard Ninjabread Men, Nick Wright, Blue Moon, Louis Mayol, Snowy May, NG Art, Craft Gal, Carl Cully, Danny Fitzgerald and Vanilla. Thank you so much for signing up, I do appreciate it more than I can say. But I'll keep trying. Lots more fun stuff on the way, there always is, so thanks for watching, lots of love from me, and I'll see you very soon.